And hello, it's me again, and today we're doing a little show with Polynesian music played at a Polynesian restaurant. Back when I was about 21 or so, I played drums in a trio that played at a Polynesian restaurant called the Kahiki in Columbus, Ohio. And in that band was a leader who played piano, flute, and bass, and a guitarist. And those two musicians were probably the best musicians I've ever played with in my life. And the leader was Marsh Padilla, and the guitarist was Leroy Plymell. And turns out some old tapes of that group that played at that restaurant in 1965 were found, and a guy put together a album with that. And the guy that did it is a DJ in Ohio, and he was interviewed on a podcast about Polynesian music. They call it Exotica, and the fact that he had found this tape from the leader of that group. He was about 90 years old now, and he put it together and is selling it online. And so I just wanted to play that interview for anybody interested in old discovered music and Polynesian music, tiki restaurants. And for my friend Leroy Plymell out in Texas, who I just found on the internet not too long ago, and thought he might get a kick out of hearing the recording of this. This was actually a year before he was in the band, apparently, but at least he could hear what the other musicians were doing the year before he joined the band. And this was about, I'm thinking about 3 years or so before I joined the band. So anyway, pretty interesting. So here's the recording of that show from a recording from 1965 at the Kahiki restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. And here's the podcast regarding that.
Welcome to part 2 of Rare Exotica Vinyl with our special guest, Jeff Chenal. We hope you enjoyed the first part of this episode where we geeked out, seriously geeked out on rare records, and this one's for all you record collectors out there. So we're going to continue geeking out now in part 2. We are back with Jeff Chenal, and Jeff has just informed me that he has some breaking news. So now let's turn to the news desk. Yes, I'm a geek, okay? All right, Jeff.
Well, when we were talking about restaurant records, you know, I've always been on the lookout for them, and you know, I've befriended a lot of people locally here in Columbus, Ohio. Francis Lacuna, Marsh Padilla, you know, and Marsh is going to be moving to Boise, Idaho, and he's basically in the process of going through the whole house and organizing things so they can have an estate sale and sell everything off and then move and retire. You know, he's in his 90s now. But anyways, he found 3 reel-to-reels by the Kahiki Trio, recorded at the Kahiki restaurant in 1965.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Marsh and the Beachcomber Trio, or the Kahiki Trio as they were known at the time, he recorded there from 1961, or not recorded but played, till 1978. So his band played there for 17 years.
Wow.
And he had completely forgotten about these recordings until he started moving everything around in his house, you know, and he found them, and he knew I had asked him if he had ever recorded anything, and he couldn't remember. Well, lo and behold, he found these reels, and I've already had them digitally transferred, and they sound really good. And what I'm doing is putting the best tracks together, because all 3 reels were all recorded in 1965, and I'm going to put the best the best songs and release it as a limited edition LP.
Fantastic. What a great idea. That, I mean, to find a gem like that from a place as important as the Kahiki, that's phenomenal. So I had the Royal Tahitian record, but now you've one-upped me again.
That's right. And there's a really cool version of Yellowbird that he does that I'll let the listeners listen to if you want.
Phenomenal. Let's do that. All right. So this is Yellowbird by
The Kahiki Trio.
The Kahiki Trio in 1960, what did you say, 1963?
1965.
Live at the Kahiki in Columbus, Ohio.
And we used to play this song many, many times a night. Yellowbird. When I played it, we played it with a marimba instead of vibraphone. This is recorded right at the piano bar, so you can hear people talking that were sitting right around the musicians. I think the leader, Marsh Padilla, is playing electric bass. And I'm not sure who the vibraphonist is or the drummer or guitarist. But there's only 3 people, so somebody's doubling on something. Vibraphonist might have been a guy named Dragoo. I used to know his son who played drums. I don't know who's doing the whistling, a customer or somebody in the band. Don't know who the guitarist is. As I recall, we used to play from, I think it was 8 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning. The flutist would be the leader, Marsh Padilla. looking at the iTunes where I'm playing this from, and they have some photographs, and they actually have a photograph of the band, but I don't recognize anybody but the leader. This comes from digitiki.com. This is in stereo, by the way. If you have headphones are recommended. This is a very good quality recording from 1965.
Yeah, in fact, what's really neat is that as soon as you start listening to these reels, you can hear a fountain in the background. So you get this water type sound. I guess there was a fountain by where the band played, so you hear this fountain throughout them playing, but the sound quality is really good.
Oh, that is phenomenal. Wow.
I'm going to probably only press about 300 albums on vinyl, and then that's going to be it. I don't think I'm even going to do a CD. I want it to be like a restaurant record. I think maybe this was going to be a record at one point, and it just got shelved and forgotten about, and now I'm kind of going to bring these tapes out and share them with everybody else.
Well, thank you for debuting that here.
Yeah, that's some news. It's probably not going to be available until probably the end of the year, if not next year, but it will be out.
Put me down for one. Put me down for one. I want one desperately.
You got one.
I know this is kind of your deal, but I want to throw an artist in here that's not incredibly rare, but has gotten rare.
Yeah, anyway, so that was a podcast, the Quiet Village podcast. They specialize in playing very rare recordings of exotic and Polynesian music. South Pacific music was very popular back in the 60s. And that recording was from a 1965 live recording at the Kahiki restaurant in Columbus, Ohio, a band that I played in, although I played in the band in 1968. And they call it the Beachcomber Trio, or the Kahiki Trio. So that's very interesting. Bit of history there. And again, the musicians were unknown in that particular recording, but I played with Leroy Plymell and Marsh Padilla, the leader. Some of the best musicians I'd ever heard in my whole life. So anyway, there we go. All right, hope you enjoyed that. See you later. This is Don Brown from La Belle, Florida.